And as I was thinking to myself, "Why am I hungry?" that story bubbled up. And in that moment, it was just like it was like the heavens opened up. That is why I could not stop eating certain foods. I didn't really want the food. I wanted what the food represented. Our healing is in our own story. I teach something that's called prescriptive writing.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Joan Ifland here. Thanks so much for joining me with these conversations about how to recover from processed food. Today, I have with me Michelle Petties, and we are going to be talking about her incredible book. We will give you all the information at the end for how to get it. But Michelle is going to give you a breakthrough that I have never heard about anywhere else. So, Michelle, tell us how you came to write this book.
Oh, yes. So here, what had happened was, is that, I had, Joan, I had struggled with my weight almost all of my adult life.
Yeah.
And over the course of my lifetime, I know we don't really talk about pounds, but I have gained and lost over 700 pounds. If we talk about
Oh my
that
God.
yo-yo effect,
Yeah.
lose 30, gain 40,
Yeah.
lose 50, gain 60, I did that from the time I was 20 years old until the time I was 60.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, yes. But I'm sorry, but in many ways, what I understand that this journey was for me, and if I had not gone through that journey, I wouldn't be able to share this message right here. I wouldn't be
Well,
able to share
that's
this
it.
message
That's
right
it.
now.
That's what we do. Those of us who've had a really, really hard time, we spin straw to gold. We pull the good out of it. We turn pain to purpose. And you have done an incredible job of that. I want every listener to know that Michelle has approach to healing that I've never heard before, and I'm really, really excited about. So you're doing that. You're doing what the best thing we can do with trauma is use it to help another person.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell us how the
Yes.
book came about and how it helps other people.
I had reached a low point in my journey. I won't go into all the details of the low point, but I reached a low point, and I went to a doctor who had told me earlier on, "I can help you." So I hit what was my last rock bottom moment, and I went to this doctor, and she said, "Okay, follow this plan, and you will not be hungry. Follow it, and you will not be hungry." And I knew, Joan, I knew I could do it. I knew I could follow the plan because I had done it many, many times before. But in her office, I said to myself, "This has got to be the last time. I have got to figure out what I have been missing. I have not, there's something going on with me in food that I do not understand. And I have got to figure it out."
Oh
And
my
that
gosh, Michelle, millions and millions of people have been in that exact moment. And they're just, this is it. I'm going to figure it out. And then they don't get the right support, the right information. But you worked it through. Tell us what happened.
so here's what happened. So I'm going along, I'm following the plan, I'm losing weight. The doctor's saying you're doing good, and all of that. And then one day I felt the need to eat. And I thought to myself, why do I want to eat? Because I just ate. I'm not hungry. The doctor said I wouldn't be hungry. I'm not hungry. Why do I want to eat right now? And I will tell you something. I was 60 years old, Joan. I had never asked myself that question before in my
Oh
life.
my God. See,
Why do
no
I want
matter
to?
how old you are, grace is waiting around the corner.
Yes,
That's
yes.
grace. Yeah.
Why do I want to eat right now?
Yep.
And
Yep.
when I asked that question, a story bubbled up inside of me that helped
Oh,
me connect the dots around my emotions and food. And the short version of that story, the short version of the story, if you want to hear the long version, you can watch my TED talk. But
okay.
the short version of my story is that my uncle told me about an incident where he was beaten when he was a kid for stealing
Mm,
a watermelon.
mm.
And he never ate watermelon as a result of that beating.
Oh,
And
okay.
as I was thinking to myself, why am I hungry? That story bubbled up.
Okay.
And in that moment, it was just like it was like the heavens opened up, and I got it. I was like, my uncle didn't eat watermelon because of the experience, because of the memory, because of the event, because that was so traumatic to him
Yep.
that he couldn't bring himself to relive the experience by eating the food.
By
He had
associating it.
he had gotten the food and the feeling and the emotion all tangled up in one.
Right, right, right.
And as I sat there and thought about that, I said, oh my God, that is the opposite for me.
There
That
you
is
go.
why I could not stop eating certain foods, because I was so connected to the pleasure of what the foods represented. It was the association that I wanted. I didn't really want the food. I wanted what the food represented.
Yes, the high, the numbing, the escape, the comfort. It's not comfort, but
No,
yeah, that's
the
so many people. This is a big, big factor in people being able to escape processed foods because, of course, those are all false promises. You do experience the pleasure, but then it drops you off lower than where you started.
yes, yes,
Okay, but
yes.
you got the story. This
It,
is what I really want people to hear is this story creation is a pathway to healing.
it
So
absolutely is.
now you had that experience and you said to yourself, there's a book in here. So what happened next?
As I started to lose weight, my doctor said you should. She said to me, "You should write a book." No,
Mm,
she said you should write a cookbook, right?
mm,
And but you need to include the stories, because your stories are the things that have made the difference for you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I wasn't really feeling that. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't need to do that. I just, just give me my stuff so I can get out of here, right? And then I finally lost the weight, and I got to what I felt like was my ideal healthy weight.
Uh-huh.
And I remember it was October. It was October 2019, and I was so excited. I scheduled a fashion shoot, and finally all makeup, all that, because for so long, Joan, I didn't want to take full length pictures. I only
Yeah.
wanted my pictures taken from the neck up. I wanted to hide behind
You and
somebody.
hundreds
All
of millions of other people.
all of
This
that, right?
yeah.
And so to celebrate, not just the transformation in my body, but just the transformation in how I saw myself, right? How I was
Yes,
showing up in the world,
yes,
that thing, right?
yes.
So that was October 2019. Well, fast forward 5 months, COVID hit,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I felt like my transformation was true, because I had figured out, even at that point, that my issue was that I was unconsciously eating too much of the wrong stuff for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons. Yep. Too
And
much of the wrong stuff for the wrong
for the
reasons.
wrong reasons.
I can just feel that everybody listening to that. Yep, yep, that's me. Yep.
Yep. And here's the other thing I figured out about that, is that if I address the consciousness, and if I address the reason, then that stuff in the middle, the amount and the thing, could be more easily dealt with by
Brilliant.
addressing getting conscious and addressing getting the reasons. The very things that the traditional methods don't want us to deal with. They just want us to deal with behavior and not
Yeah.
belief system. But when
Yeah.
we get my getting to my story fundamentally changed how I felt about food, what I believed about food, what I thought about food. And our bodies follow our brain. And I
Absolutely.
realized that that's the if I've just stayed focused on my belief about food, and what and how it was supposed to be used, what its purpose was, what its intent was, what it does.
Brilliant.
It was a fundamental shift for me. So COVID hit.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah. Love it.
back to the book. So COVID hit. I felt like I was strong, right? That I had an understanding and insight that I had never had in all the past years, but I had not been tested, right? And so
COVID
when
was a tester. That was definitely a test
it
setup.
was, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And so when it hit, I saw people on television. I heard people talking about, oh, I'm at home. I'm just watching television. I'm just eating. I'm just doing this. Oh, the world's coming to an end. All of that, and I thought, mm-mm, I'm not going down like that. I'm not
Yay.
I'm not going out like that. And
Yeah.
so I started thinking, well, maybe my what else do I have to do? I may as well try this writing thing that my doctor's been talking about.
Yay!
I may as well try, I may as well try that. And so, but she had said you should write a cookbook and you should include your stories. And I had done some research that says be authentic. So I decided that I was going to write a cookbook with stories, but it was also going to be a diary about my first 90 days in COVID. So I
Super.
wrote about 3 lines and didn't get anything written. And I'm saying, why? I was nothing was happening. So I
Yeah.
went on Google, and the first thing they said on YouTube was pick a lane, pick something. I was trying to
Okay.
do too much. I was trying to do all three of them. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
so so I started to look at it really kind of analytically. I'm like, all right, a cookbook. I am not a cook, right? There are
Okay.
thousands and thousands of books written by
That's
nutrition
right.
doctors,
That's exactly
book
right. If it was a
right?
question of cookbooks, we'd be safe by now.
Why would somebody read my cookbook? They wouldn't. Then
Yeah.
when I looked at my 90-day diary, Joan, that thing was so boring. I didn't want to read it. I'm like, nobody's gonna want to read this. Why? So,
Okay. Okay.
so that 90-day diary was out. But then what was left was the stories.
Okay.
And once I settled on the stories, I couldn't stop writing
Oh
because the
my gosh.
stories were so uniquely my experience. They were
Okay.
new. They and they flew off the page.
Okay.
I wrote
Okay.
story after story about these the initial beliefs and thoughts that I had about food many times when I was a kid, right? And how they didn't change as I became an adult and how they needed to because they were keeping me trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized in writing this book was the same stories that kept me trapped in food addiction and obesity for so long were the same stories that were my path to freedom. I had to go back and unpack them and look at them and understand that I was processing things through the lens of a child, not as an adult. That I was processing things through the lens of a culture, of an environment that wanted to keep me trapped, right? That was perpetrating it.
You're just this is you're bringing out in me and see this is why your writing and the way you talk and the way you're approaching this is so powerful and so effective, and people will heal and they will get control of their food by working with you, because as you're talking, I just realized a story that I never was conscious of as a child. But now that you're talking about this way, I say, oh, I did have a story as a child. And the story was, go eat that and you'll feel better. You know, my mother had just done something horrible. There'd just been some kind of crisis. She had just traumatized me, for the 84th zillionth time. And yet, in that household, and I grew up in the 1950s and 60s, there were numbing drugs that I could turn to. And I know I've had this moment as an adult, just thinking, same like you. Well, why do I want to eat that? And there's this little voice that comes up inside of me. It's because we'll feel better. And it was so deeply ingrained. There was no comfort in the rest of my house. So there were no people. There were no nice people. There was no place to go. I could go out in nature. So I could go out in nature. We lived in a place where there was nature, really great nature right nearby. I could go out there, and I did days out there in the fields, in the woods, or I could eat a processed foods. And so when you, as an adult, you say, okay, we're going to give up this processed foods, there's all those little girls like, what? That's like our main port. And now we're going to suffer so bad. We can't do that because
Yes,
that's where we go.
yes,
Well, Michelle, so this is like a live demonstration of the effectiveness of Michelle's approach. What's the story? What's the story? What is the story you're telling? What are the story you told yourself as a kid? So here it is. We have a live demonstration.
yes. And you know what, Joan? It works just like that.
There you
Because
go.
when you recognize it, when you recognize it, you can free yourself. You can free yourself from it.
Well,
And
yes, and now I can turn to that little girl and I say, look at all these other ways we have to comfort ourselves now.
yes, yes,
We can do a meditation, we can do a sound healing, we can do a visualization. And then it's like I'm teaching this little girl now other things to do. And she's like, oh, okay, so we don't need the food.
right. Yeah, we don't need it.
Yay! All right, I know you have a method. You have a method, and you just told me about this 4-step method.
Yes.
Tell us, tell us, tell us.
Yes, yes. So we all have these stories inside of us, these beliefs, these experiences, these memories that drive us. Some
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we don't know that they're working in the background, right?
Exactly.
Driving our behavior. And so
Exactly.
my four-step method is finding, facing, rewriting, and replacing.
All right,
These
walk
are
us through it. Tell us each
okay.
what each of those steps
Okay.
does.
So these are all called food stories. And our food story determines how we act around a certain food. It's our belief about the food, what we think about the food. If you're allergic to something, you're not going to eat it. You have a conscious food story about it. Not going to eat
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
But we
yeah.
have subconscious and unconscious stories running as well.
This is
So
brilliant.
once we find the story, we identify, what happened what happened. And oftentimes it's the very first time you had something, or it
Uh-huh.
may be something traumatic around the thing that happened. It doesn't have to be the first time, but find out what happens. And then you have to face the fact that you have an emotional response to
Mm-hmm.
the incident, that
Mm-hmm.
that incident is driving you in some way. So you
Yep.
find it, you face it, now you rewrite it. And that,
Yep.
that's kind of like what we do in the art when we write a play, right?
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand that, we have options. Just because it happened that one time doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to happen that way a second time, or that
Yes.
it
Yes.
always has to happen that way.
Yes.
So
We have control.
we
We
have
have.
control. We have, and this is where your creativity comes in. We rewrite the story. We rewrite a different ending. We write it with the ending that we want to have, that we
There you
wanted
go.
to have.
There you go. So you
And,
found the story, you
uh-huh,
faced the story, you're rewriting it, and
and
then
then
what?
and then the replacement. All right, the
Mhm.
replacement, we can rewrite it, but we have to get used to the newness of it, right?
Mhm.
The replacing is the activation, right? The replacement is the practice, right?
Super.
The replacement is ensuring that it's true. It's continuing to let it become who you are by
Yeah.
by continuing to live in that rewriting of it. You just replace it. I don't do that anymore. I do this now. I don't believe this anymore. I believe this now. And
Right.
saying that over and over and over again, acting that way over and over again, so
Oh
we
my God,
it
it just
becomes
works.
who
It
you
just
are.
works. You are literally, see, people don't know this, that if you repeat something to your brain cells, every time you repeat that, the brain cell stores it and it stores it and it
Mhm,
stores it. And
mhm.
this is why you want to make sure that you're never facing an advertiser. And you're really, a lot of entertainment now, movies and videos and so on, have gotten onto this. And so the movies, the entertainment industry is now trying to program our brains to be
Yes,
stressed and to buy things to
yes,
quell the stress. So chronic stress is a big issue. It's because of the stories that we're hearing, the things that are being implanted in our brain over and over again. But what I hear you saying is you decide what story you want in your
yes,
brain, and
absolutely.
you tell your brain that story often enough, you will become that story.
Yes. And the deeper piece of that, and the part that I teach something that's called prescriptive writing. And it is
Mm,
it is writing for healing. In my
wow.
workshops, I do healing through reading, writing, and storytelling, because that's
Great.
how that reading, writing, and storytelling, that's how we get our brains back.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah, yeah. Okay, this is it. You got to wrestle. You got to like really get, where are the snipers out there? Who's shooting at me? Okay, I'm going to go a different way. I'm not going to let them shoot at me anymore. I'm not going to let them hurt me. Yes, Michelle, I love this.
Yes, yes. Prescriptive writing, and it is different, right? So if you go to any of these, all the programs that I tried for years and years, right? The reputable ones. There were some sleazy
Yeah,
ones too, but the reputable ones, they all had some component in it that said journaling, writing.
yeah,
I never did it. I never did it. I never got to sleep. I never drank the water. I never did any of the things that I thought were not important, which turns out are the most important things to do.
that's okay. You know, the addiction works in many, many ways.
But
Michelle, I
I
want
started
to
to,
make sure that everybody knows about your book. Do you have a copy of it handy? If not, we'll insert an image of it from Amazon. But tell us the name of the book and where people can get it. And I also want people to know where to find your workshops.
sure, sure. So the name of the book is Leaving Large: The Stories of a Food Addict. Leaving, Leaving.
Yeah,
Leaving large, because it's a
maybe.
journey, right? We're
Yeah,
all we're always on journey, and the more we're on this journey, the more joy we find in the journey. We don't think it.
yeah,
We don't always think it in the very first step, but the
yeah,
more we start to uncover and discover about ourselves, we just see light and energy and promise and purpose and all that stuff that was covered up for so long by the addiction.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
Leaving Large: The Stories of a Food Addict. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from me, right? You can
Yay.
if you just go to leavinglarge.com, it'll come up. You can order
Leavinglarge.com.
leavinglarge.com. You can order from me. I'll sign it. I'll sign it and,
Nice.
and, and send it to you, right?
Are
Um,
your workshops also on the Leaving Large website?
if you're interested in the workshop, just email me. My email address is right up here on the screen.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
Michelle at michellepettis.com.
super.
And the workshops are called Write Your Way to Your Right Weight. How about that? Write your way to your right weight.
Love it. I love it
And
to pieces.
we spend time finding out and uncovering and discovering what your story is, and we share that in group. And what happens is that when you start to hear people share their own stories, it helps you get more connected to your own story. And our
Absolutely.
healing is in our own story. But
Absolutely.
as you hear others, you start to connect some dots. You start to get some clarity, right?
Well,
All
we
of
just
all the
saw that
questions.
happen. We just saw that happen
Yes,
right here.
yes,
So you've got a real life example of what Michelle's work can do. I am so grateful to know you, Michelle. And do go to Michelle's website, either buy the book from her and get her to sign it for you, or hop over to Amazon and use that website. But I hope that we are leaving you with a great deal of hope today.
there's
Michelle,
always
thank
hope.
you so
There's
much.
always hope. Joan, thank you so much for the art.
Yay.
Thank you so much for the wonderful work that you do, for
Oh
holding
my
space
gosh.
and just being a safe place for all of us. Yes.
Yay. All right. See you next time. Thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate your interest. Tell the next person. You can walk the next person out of this processed food nightmare with what you learned today. See you next time.